I couldn't believe it. We were about to do this. My best friend Amina and I were about to board a flight to Turkey and cross over to Syria. I hadn't discussed this with my parents or anyone else. I had simply left them a note explaining in it that it was my duty to travel and join the cause. Every night Amina would message me on a group chat and we would share jokes and laugh together. And then one day she showed me a number of tweets by a British girl who had travelled to Syria. She was telling other girls about her life in Syria, how it was better than being in the UK, and she had a purpose to her life, supporting ISIS and the Caliphate. Intrigued by this, Amina and I began to search and watch online videos about the situation in Syria. We often talked about how it was our obligation as Muslims to travel to Syria and help those suffering. And then one day Amina told me she had spoken to a good Muslim brother online who could help make this possible. I had debated with Amina many times about whether our decision to travel was correct, but the Muslim brother had convinced us by showing graphic videos about seeking revenge for injustices against Muslims. I still had my doubts, but I felt I had to do something. I saw many families at the airport, and I imagined my mother waking up to find my letter and breaking down. The very obedient daughter who had never been in trouble was now going to dishonour them and destroy their lives. I turned to Amina and told her I couldn't do this. She tried to convince me otherwise, but I told her disobeying my parents for a cause that I didn't fully understand was not the right decision. On finding my letter, my parents had been distraught and called the police and our local imam. They prayed that I would be stopped before reaching Syria and brought back safely. I broke down and explained that I had been confused, but realised my actions were wrong. The police spoke to me, trying to understand my motives. I admitted I had made a mistake and wanted my life to go back to normal. They were pleased that I'd returned on my own accord and asked me to help them to stop Amina from reaching Syria. But we were too late. The smugglers arranged for Amina to be taken to the border immediately, and within a few days she was married to an ISIS fighter, something she had not expected. I spent a lot of time talking to my family and my local imam. They helped me understand that the path I had chosen was wrong. My imam reminded me that when our prophet spoke of people who distorted Islam to further their own goals, it was groups like ISIS he was referring to. Supporting these groups was akin to going against my religion. After a few days, the whole community knew that Amina had travelled to Syria. Her family made several appeals to raise awareness and to ask her to return back safely, but they did not hear anything from her. Several months had passed, and Amina's husband had been killed during an airstrike. Her home had also been destroyed. She was told she was to marry another fighter within days and had no say in the matter. And one day, I received an email from Amina. She regretted her decision to travel and wished she was in my place and had the courage to return to her family. She was now condemned to spend the rest of her life in a war zone from which there was no escape. I wrote several times to Amina asking her to get into contact, but she never responded again. Once my life had slowly begun to return to normal, I shared my story with other girls in the hope that they would be deterred from making the same mistake that Amina had made by disobeying her parents and religion and ultimately ruining her life.